You can become a hero. By Orphaned Account on AO3. Episode 6. Chapter 4. Death is Scary. Dabi took big steps to head to the agreed diner. It was small and out of the busy cities. Hopefully it would give him the privacy he wanted when meeting his mother once again. Hawks had tagged along, as promised. He had stuck around in the bathroom to give Dabi a cloth to clean up the blood and then guided him out to the streets. He assured Dabi that he looked fine. It was comfortable, even if Dabi knew it was a lie. She should be there by now. Hawks chirped as he approached the door. Dabi followed after him. Back hunched and hands jammed into his pockets. The hero gave him a gentle smile, pausing with his hand on the door. Are you ready? We can take a minute if you want. Let's just get this over with. Despite his harsh tone, he was a little afraid. Hawks didn't comment if he noticed. Pushing open the door, a small bell rang as they entered, alerting all those who could see that there was a new customer. The owner seemed to recognize him, a scowl settling to his face before he handed them a menu and said in a sour tone, "In the back booth." They both wandered to the restaurant area. As he had said, there was only one woman sitting alone. She was viewing a menu of her own, sitting with her back to them as she glanced over the choices. Dabi could tell it was his mother right away. He recognized her pristine white hair and her dainty hands as they reached for a glass of water. Hawks must have noticed the look in his eyes, stepping to the side so Dabi could make his way towards her. Unable to know what would happen, he would just go with his gut. He stopped before the table, standing stiffly in front of Ray, raising her gaze, eyes widening. Dabi had expected her to scream, but she didn't. In fact, she stumbled to her feet, leaving her bag behind as she pulled him into the biggest, warmest hug he had ever had in years. She was shaking a little as she held him, the top of her head just tickling his chin. When she pulled away, her eyes were welding with tears, her hand reaching forward without hesitation, cradling Dabi's cheek as she whispered, "My little Toya, you've grown so big. When I last saw you, you were so small." More tears began to rush down her face, and Toya could feel some prickling down his face as well. It had to be blood. It wasn't anything else. Still, he leaned forward and hugged his mother back, surprising himself with just how tight he clung on. It had to be natural. He hadn't seen her in so long, and he expected to see her ever again, but when she was dragged away, before he just pushed the thought aside, saying, "I'll die soon. The next time she shields me, it'll be in the news. People will cheer over it." However, no, he was right here. They were both alive. He had to face it. Not that he minded. Being alive was better than being dead. Buried in a plausible grave, or burned to ash. "I'm here. I'm sorry, I left." "You don't need to explain anything," she promised quietly, her thumbs trailing over his tough scars. I'm so happy to have my son back." Dabi nodded his head, watching with wide eyes as she stepped onto her tippy toes and placed a kiss to his forehead, just as she had all those years ago. She cradled him when he was injured from training with Endeavor, comforting as much as she could. It usually just involved her lulling him to sleep, as being passed out was better than writhing in pain whenever he moved. At the thought, he tensed, and followed as she guided him to sit down. He spared a glance to the front of the restaurant, but Hawks was gone. "I had a whole speech for you when I saw you," Ray said as she wiped her eyes, hand reaching to hold Dabi across the table, cold meeting warm skin. "I was gonna scold you for getting involved with the wrong crowd and for... I don't know. I was so angry. But now I'm only relieved. I thought you were led down the wrong track without me there to guide you. I regretted it every day. But seeing you here now..." "I'm not a good person, Mom," Dabi murmured, but he didn't pull his hand away. "I deserve whatever you had coming." Ray shook her head. "If you lived under my roof, you'd be grounded for a year. But I suppose how I feel is close to something a hero told me recently about you." She clasped her hands together and smiled. It was nice and light, Dabi had never seen her so lively. Was Endeavor the cause of it? Was he? He wished he could ask, but that was too much at once. He didn't need to know. He did, however, want to hear out the last part of what she had to say. Not every problem is a problem. It's usually a misguided opportunity. Anyone can change, if they can see there's a way. Sounds cheesy. Dabi laughed uneasily. Afterwards, things went relatively smooth. Dabi ate a lot. That was mainly because his mother kept ordering things for him to eat, claiming he was too skinny for his own good. All the while, she told him stories about Shoto visiting her at the hospital and how Endeavor and her were. Since leaving the hospital, though, she lived under Endeavor's roof. They were no longer together. They were no forced love, nothing. They were a family, but that didn't mean they were going to pretend their feelings that there never were from the start. Though his mother did say that maybe in the future she'd try to find love, but for now she wanted to be with her family. Their family. Dabi took home 3 boxes of food. Hawks eagerly takes 2 of them, scoffing down the cold food as Dabi wrestled the other box into the refrigerator, leading to him removing several containers of molding food. He tossed them to the floor to throw away later, jamming the box in as Hawks entered the room, finishing a pile of fries. So, how are things? Annoying. The food came late, and she wouldn't stop talking. The only good thing about it was a free meal. Dabi huffed, rolling his eyes, though he was secretly content. If not for the brunch with his mother, it was from her shopping a little for him afterwards for fun. He managed to convince her for a pack of cigarettes, and he had been itching to dig into them. Hawks blinked, a blank expression crossing his face, before a smirk worked onto his lips, wings arching upwards. Oh, I remember quite a different story. You ditched. You don't know shit. Without another word, Hawks pushed his phone into Dabi's face. A picture of him hugging Ray was on the screen, his eyes red and puffy. Dabi scoffed, swatting away the phone. As he did, a brush crossed over his cheeks. Over the next few hours, Dabi settled on a hero costume and name. Hawks sent it out to get created at the end of the week. By the time he came back, 2 hours later than he should have, he was stumbling into the apartment through the balcony. Dabi glanced up. What's up? Vertigo? Very funny. Hawks weaseled. I swear to God, the people are nuts. I had to fly to avoid all the... Hawks slammed the door shut, sighing loud as he flopped into the couch, face landing head first, less than a foot from Dabi's lap. After a few minutes, he slowly turned his head to face the TV. Didn't you watch this last night? Perhaps. Dabi shrugged. Hawks only growled, flopping onto his side. He brought a hand idly to one of his wings, treading his hands through them, nearly mindlessly. Suddenly he reached a bob of dried soda across a few of the wings. However, his content grew as time went on, fixing his feathers in order to try to get the residue off. Eventually, Dabi turned all his attention to the hero, who could hardly notice as he tidied himself up. Hawks was just like a bird, from the way he craned his neck and his fingers dug into the thick callus around the tips of his feather, trying to clean himself off as if it was his sole purpose. It was a little amusing to see him wiggle around, eyes narrowed. Gently, Dabi brought his hand up and ran a hand up the feathers scattered around the slits of his shirt. Immediately the hero jumped, wings flapping to hit his face. Hawk shot up into the air, bashing his head onto the ceiling with a miserable groan. Kay! Why are you so jumpy? I just touched your wing. Dabi held his cheek, jaw aching at the smack. Hawks drifted downwards, holding his head as he fell onto Dabi's lap. Isn't it common courtesy to not touch someone's wings? Because it should be. Hawks grumbled, wings tugging against his back, nearly trapping on Dabi's arm against the small of his back in the process. Wrenching his hand away, Dabi held them in mock surrender. I was trying to get some shit out of them since you were taking your time laying on the remote. Dabi lied, wanting to thread his fingers through the wings once more, only to pull some out. He didn't. He didn't move his hands towards the wings at all until Hawks' eyes met his. You were? Hawks asked, disbelief dripping through his tone as he examined Dabi's hands, as if they were to be painted red for him. Yeah. Dabi watched as the hero's brows furrowed, his little body moving in his lap until he was almost straddling Dabi. Those beautiful red wings of his slowly stretched open, moving towards the ex-villain in an almost threatening way. No, scratch that. It was a little terrifying. Yes, Dabi could set a fire and give Hawks a fight, but Hawks had his feathers, each listening to every command. He would be no easy fight if he suddenly flipped, believing Dabi was not meant to be saved. It was an egregious thing, to say the least. Hawks wouldn't have a change of heart over something so stupid as Dabi touching his wings. Or maybe he would. Based on how things seemed right about now, nothing was set in stone. Fine. Hawks mumbled, leaning forward until his forehead touched Dabi's shoulder. Dabi could sense Hawks' feathers sharpening, but they soon relaxed to their natural, fluffy state as Hawks sighed out. I can never reach back there. Can you? His wings flapped once harshly before stretching enough for Dabi to maneuver around. He didn't, though. No, instead he stared at the hero, waiting for him to jump to his feet and laugh. After such a strong convulsion sending him rocketing to the ceiling, why would he want someone to touch his wings? Especially a scarred, likely diseased being like him, who would probably taint his wings more than whatever was stuck between the feathers currently. Dabi slowly lifted his hand under the wings, gently stroking down the base of the wings. Hawk shuddered, wings twitching, begging to soar once more, but remained seated, hands gripping Dabi's shirt. Does it hurt? Hawk shook his head, allowing Dabi to pet down the same area. My wings are highly sensitive. Any touch I don't see coming is really sudden? I don't like it. I can stop. Don't. The word brought a profound feeling inside of Dabi. He didn't understand it. It was like the feeling he felt when his mother had forgiven him for all of he'd done. But that doesn't make sense. Hawks hadn't forgiven him. He didn't even want that from Hawks as far as he could tell. With a small frown, he moved up the wings, tensing as one rebellious feather cut him as he moved. Hawks let out a small apology. It was strangely intimate, yet horrifying. Dabi's movements stuttered every so often, a new cut or tension in the wings causing him to forget how to breathe. Any moment, Hawks could easily send a feather straight to his throat, whether it was on purpose or not. The thought had Dabi's hands heating up in nervousness, eyes staring daggers into the bundles of feathers to sense any movement. Hawks was not some uncontrollable electric beast, but that was only made it worse. He looked so confident, soft breaths gracing Dabi's scarred neck as his hands laid limply to his sides. The only proof he was awake were a few hums in content and the twitching of his wings. It was as if every bit of Hawks trusted Dabi except his most dangerous side. The fear of death is necessary in many situations. One of those who want to make a statement or are crazy have no thoughts of death lingering in their mind. In the League, Dabi didn't give a shit about such a boring topic. As long as he tried to take down Endeavor, he was fine with whatever happened to him. But now, when death was practically ding-dong ditching him every 5 seconds, something burned in his throat. Regret or fear, he didn't know. All he knew was that he hated its foul taste. You were warm. No shit, Dabi side-eyed, the lock of blonde hair against his collarbone. Hands glided through the wings again, reaching the top, where thick casings were around the newly grown feathers. Hawks hummed louder at the feeling, slumping down further. Even his wings relaxed, dropping down to his sides. Good. It feels like heaven, Hawks replied, cooing when the heat increased. Dabi held back a laugh as he ran his fingers along the base of the feathers, Hawks practically chirping at the feeling. Literally, it feels like I'm getting some bird's special massage from a specialist. Hawks? Mm-hmm. You were weird. Aw. Hawks didn't seem very disappointed, though. After 10 more minutes of relaxing, he sat up and gave Dabi a lazy grin. Can we do that again? No, the whole time he had been inches away from slitting Dabi's throat. His hand was cut up and blurry earlier from all the unruly feathers. The weight of his lap was becoming more and more uncomfortable with every minute that passed with his vocal birdman. So in short, no, there will never be a next time or whatever that was. Dabi wanted to say that, but instead he simply shrugged. Whatever, Birdbrain. Hawks beamed once more, shifting in his lap as his wings folded himself nicely behind his back. As he moved them, his smile slowly dropped in a contemplated look. It didn't go unnoticed. What's wrong? Polly want a cracker? Dabi reached for the remote with his free hand. Hawk shrugged, but winced visibly when the news channel was turned on. His feathers wasn't fast enough to stop the frantic announcer. The previous #2 hero, Hawks, has been dropping from the charts exponentially after what happened a few days ago. Now, he is just barely holding on to the 17th place. He was seen out in public today, exiting his agency, where the citizens treated him to a not-so-kindly greeting. Suddenly, the screen flashed to an amateur video taken of Hawks trying to walk through a crowd, head down. People began to tug at his wings to try and get his attention, throwing trash in his direction. Wincing, the hero picked up his pace, but had eventually had to take fight when he saw no other way out of the situation, darting home as fast as he could. An epidemic of stupidity is sweeping the nation. Dabi mumbled, deadpanned as he changed the channel to a cartoon. You did your job. You saved someone, even if it was someone like me. Sadly, not many people see that as a good thing. Hawks laughed, but his tone wasn't as joyful as it usually was. Carefully, he picked himself off the ex-villain and disappeared into his bathroom. He didn't come out for 30 minutes. Dabi wasn't exactly waiting, but his eyes were fixed on the clock across the room, submerged in the rather than animated characters on the screen. Hawks came out eventually, hands wrapped around a green bottle. He sat down beside Dabi, plopping open the bottle. Guess what? I don't think I want to know. Dabi replied, but turned to see what the hero was mentioning. His eyes were a little poofy, red splotches of skin riddling from his face, when Dabi could only assume was either a really hot shower or a crying session. Not that he knew anything, Wace. Take off your jacket. Dabi sent him a glare, but fumbled out of his jacket, resting it on the armrest of the chair. Hawks held out his hands, taking one of Dabi's wrists. He held the bottle over the scarred skin, allowing a thick coat of clear substance to pool onto the unfeeling patches of skin. He set the bottle down on the table, then ran his hand through the messy pile of ointment, rubbing it into Dabi's nerve-fried arms. This is supposed to help with your skin, Hawks explained as he grazed over some of Dabi's healed skin, the cold of the gel making him shiver. It doesn't hurt, right? It didn't. In fact, Dabi couldn't feel anything at all. Not the touch of Hawks' hand, nor the way his skin roughly tugged at Hawks' threatening to tear as he worked through the temperamental burns. After both of his arms are coated, Hawks went to his chest and neck, cupping them as he rubbed in clear liquid. It was weird to not feel any of the contact. His neck felt a little as his fingers ran along the jawline, but other than that, he could only guess where they were. Hawks was so gentle, something he was grateful for. He wished Hawks would push harder so Dabi could feel it passing the dead skin he wore. His hands went to his cheeks, cupping them with a smile, as he poured a little more liquid on. He leaned forward to rub into Dabi's cheeks, observing every movement as he laddered him. Dabi's face was a bit more sensitive than his arms, and he could feel the ghost of Hawks' touch as he ran his thumb over his scarred bottom lip. There was a pause between them, before Hawks leaned closer and swiped his thumb under Dabi's eyes. Does that feel good? Yes. Yet another lie, but Dabi was pleased when Hawks smiled again. All thoughts of the news disappearing from his mind, Hawks put the bottle away as Dabi tried to touch around the scarred tissue, feeling which areas had dried and which needed more time. Over the next few days, a routine settled between the two boys. Hawks would take him to different cities to train, then they'd eat what they had. Then, at the end of the day, Hawks would lay beside Dabi, poking him until he gave attention to his wings. Afterwards, Hawks would help patch up Dabi and give him a new coat of ointment. It was relatively peaceful until Hawks woke up one day. It wasn't by feathers this time. but by his hands shaking Dabi's. Get up, we need to go. Okay, alright. That was super fun. Can we talk about the feather? Well, the feather thingy was happening, and then, mentioning the fact that, Hawks is literally straddling Dabi's lap as this is happening. I had to check the tags. I'd recheck. I'm like, hold! I'm worried, because there is a tag that says that the rating might change. So what if the rating did change, but they forgot to actually physically change it? Therefore, I'm fucked. And they're fucked, too, because apparently that's what they would be doing if the ratings changed to that. Unless it just changed to mature because there's more whatever. Anyways, I think it's really cute that they're doing the little pruning. I think it said that it was, daily, right? Or not, yeah. Next few days, the routine settled. Yeah, daily. Dabi preens Hawks in the best way you could preen, somebody who doesn't actually need to pluck out feathers, or does he? I don't know. Depends. His quirk changes depending on which fic you're reading, which I think is really cool with certain characters like that, where the quirk aspect of the thingy changes depending on which story you're reading and stuff like that. So it's really interesting to figure it out and stuff, right? And then the jail thing. I think it's really cool. I think it's really cute. I'm starting to see a little bit of the relationship bonding a bit more, and I like that we're seeing them fully trust each other a bit more, and seeing that a lot more, and then slowly will build up into their feelings. I actually quite enjoy that. I'm having so much fun. So chapter 5 is Look to the Sky. Dabi finally has his hero outfit. However, just because he looks like one doesn't mean he is a hero. How will he manage his first day with Endeavor? Oh, interesting. Okay. Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server, socials, and merch shop are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.